I still remember the burning shame in my father's eyes when he told me I was worthless because I was born a girl. I was 18 valedictorian of my class, with dreams bigger than our small Tennessee town. None of that mattered. Girls are a liability, he said, cutting me from the family as easily as pruning a dead branch. 15 years later, I'm worth $30 million. My financial app has revolutionized how women manage money. Yesterday, my parents showed up at my office for the first time since they threw me out. They didn't come to apologize. They came because they're broke and desperate. They demand my fortune as their right. What they don't realize is that my response will change everything they thought they knew about their disowned daughter. Growing up in Cedar Ridge, Tennessee, I learned early that being born female was my greatest failure. My parents, Richard and Meredith Williams, made no secret that sons were the family treasure. As the youngest child and only daughter after 3 boys, I lived in the shadow of their disappointment. Our family home sat on 3 acres at the edge of town, a sprawling 2-story colonial that felt like 2 different houses. Upstairs, my brothers Tom, Steve, and Andrew had spacious bedrooms with game consoles, computers, and all the latest gadgets. My small room at the end of the hall had second-hand furniture and walls that were never repainted after the previous owner's child moved out. Boys need space to become men, Mom would say, when I asked why Steve got a TV for his room, while I couldn't even get a desk lamp that wasn't from a garage sale. Dad ran Williams Construction, a company started by my grandfather that had grown to employ 30 people. The family legacy, he called it, though that legacy apparently had gender requirements. From the time my brothers could walk, they were little foremen in training. Dad took them to job sites on weekends, bought them toy tools that gradually became real ones, and opened savings accounts labeled Williams Construction Future Executives. When I asked to go to a job site at age 10, Dad laughed. "What for? You'll just get in the way. Construction isn't for girls." Mom, who should have understood the sting of such dismissal, simply nodded along. She'd grown up in an even more traditional family and seemed to believe her only value came from raising sons and supporting her husband. "That's just how the world works, Gloria," she'd tell me. "Men build the houses, women keep them. Be grateful for your place." Instead of construction sites, I buried myself in books and academics. If I couldn't earn their approval through gender, maybe achievement would work. I joined every club, took every advanced class, stayed up studying until 2 in the morning. By 16, I was first in my class editor of the school newspaper and had already won a state science competition with a project on sustainable building materials that I thought might finally interest my father. "That's nice," honey, was all he said, barely glancing at the medal, before turning back to helping Andrew with college applications. The contrast in how they treated us became impossible to ignore as we got older. When Tom turned 16, he got a used truck. When Steve turned 16, he got a used truck. When Andrew turned 16, he got a used truck. When I turned 16, I got a cake and permission to use Mom's car if she didn't need it. All 3 brothers had college funds. Tom went to University of Tennessee on a partial football scholarship, with Dad covering the rest. Steve went to Georgia Tech to study engineering with full family support. Andrew was at Vanderbilt pre-business, with Dad already planning his executive office at Williams Construction. My 18th birthday fell 2 months before high school graduation. I'd been accepted to 7 colleges, including a prestigious computer science program at Northwestern, with a partial scholarship. I still needed about $20,000 per year to make it work. After dinner, I brought my acceptance letter to show my parents, hoping the partial scholarship might persuade them to help with the rest, just as they'd done for my brothers. Dad set down his coffee cup and looked at me with the same expression he used when examining defective materials at a job site. "Gloria, we need to be practical. Your brothers are investing in careers that make sense. They'll take over the business, support their families, carry on the Williams name. Spending college money on girls is just throwing good money after bad. You'll get married, have kids, and whatever degree you get will just collect dust. But I don't want to get married right away. I want to study computer science, create things." Mom patted my hand. "Honey, be reasonable. Those tech companies are all men anyway. You'd be miserable." "I've been saving," I said, my voice getting smaller. "I have $3,000 from birthdays and babysitting. I just need help with the rest. Dad's face hardened. Actually, about that money, we've put it in Andrew's account. Vanderbilt raised their fees and he needed the extra cash. I felt like I'd been slapped. You took my money, without asking me. It's not your money, Dad said, voice rising. You're a minor living under our roof. Everything here belongs to us, including whatever cash you've managed to squirrel away. I'm 18 today. I'm not a minor anymore. Don't get smart with me, Dad said, standing up. As long as you live in this house, you follow our rules. We decide what happens with family money, and the family has bigger priorities than sending you to waste 4 years on a degree you'll never use. I looked at my mother, hoping for support, but she stared at the tablecloth, silent as always when Dad made proclamations. So, what am I supposed to do? I asked, tears burning my eyes. Community college is fine if you insist on more school. Or, there's the beauty school in Johnson City. You could do hair work around your future family's schedule. That's practical for a girl. Something in me snapped. Years of being less than, of watching my brothers receive everything while I fought for scraps, of killing myself for grades that never seemed to matter. I'm not just a girl. I'm your daughter. Why have you always treated me like I'm worth less than them? Dad's face flushed red. Because girls are worth less. There, I said it. You want the truth. We never wanted a daughter. After Andrew, we were done. You were a mistake, Gloria. We did our duty and raised you, but I'm not throwing away good money after bad. This family builds men, not corporate feminists with delusions of grandeur. Mom finally spoke. Richard, please. No, Meredith. She wants honesty, she'll get it. Gloria, you have 2 choices. Accept your place, go to beauty school or community college, and we'll keep providing a roof over your head. Or, keep pushing this nonsense and find out how the real world treats girls with attitudes. I stood up, shaking with rage and hurt. I found the financial aid forms in your office, Dad. The ones for my brothers. You filled them out, helped them apply for every scholarship and grant possible. You never once offered to help me. Because they deserved it, he shouted. They're carrying on the Williams legacy. I went upstairs and pulled out the emergency backpack I'd started packing 2 years earlier, when I first suspected this day might come. Clothes, toiletries, important documents I'd secretly copied, and $87 cash I'd hidden in a tampon box where I knew Dad would never look. When I came downstairs, the family was watching TV as if nothing had happened. No one looked up except Andrew, who smirked. I'm leaving, I said. Dad didn't even turn from the screen. You'll be back when real life teaches you a lesson. Mom finally stood. Gloria, don't be dramatic. Where will you even go? I had no answer, but I walked out anyway, the screen door banging behind me like a period at the end of my childhood. The first night of freedom felt anything but free. I sat in a 24-hour diner until 3 in the morning, nursing a cup of coffee and trying not to cry as I called everyone I knew. Most high school friends were useless. They lived with parents who would call mine. Finally, Jenna, a girl from debate club, said I could crash on her couch for 2 nights before her parents returned from vacation. Those 2 nights became a pattern over the next few months. Couch surfing with acquaintances, sleeping in the library during the day, picking up shifts at any place that would hire me. I got a breakfast job at a diner from 5 to 11 a.m., an afternoon job at a grocery store from noon to 6, and evening shifts at a gas station from 7 to midnight. Sleep happened in broken 2-hour chunks. College dreams evaporated against the harsh reality of survival. Every penny went to a fund I called Not Homeless Next Month. I showered at the community center, carried all my possessions in my backpack, and learned which fast food places would let you sit all day with 1 small coffee. During a particularly low moment, sobbing in a McDonald's bathroom at 2 a.m., after being kicked out of my latest temporary housing, I considered calling home. Pride stopped me. I could still hear Dad's voice. You'll be back when real life teaches you a lesson. I refused to prove him right. The turning point came 3 months after leaving home. I was filling out job applications in the public library when Mrs. Peterson, my former AP computer science teacher, spotted me. Gloria, I haven't seen you since graduation. I thought you were heading to Northwestern. The genuine concern in her eyes broke through my carefully constructed facade. Before I could stop myself, the whole story poured out my parents' refusal to help the stolen savings, my current homeless but not quite situation. Instead of pity, Mrs. Peterson's face showed determination. "This is unacceptable. You were my best student in 10 years of teaching." She took me to the community college's financial aid office that very afternoon. With her help, I applied for every available scholarship grant and work-study program. The advisor, moved by my situation, and Mrs. Peterson's advocacy, found emergency funds for students in crisis that would cover my first semester. "You'll need somewhere stable to live," Mrs. Peterson said as we left the college. 2 phone calls later, she'd connected me with 4 other female students looking for a 5th roommate to make their apartment affordable. That night, I slept on an actual bed for the first time in months. A thin mattress on the floor of a cramped bedroom I shared with another girl, but it felt like the Ritz-Carlton. The apartment was a rundown 3-bedroom with 5 young women, 1 bathroom, and constant noise, but it was stable. With housing secured, I focused on education. Community college wasn't Northwestern, but the computer science program was decent. I continued working my multiple jobs while taking a full course load, averaging 4 hours of sleep, but maintaining a perfect GPA. During my second semester, a professor named Diane Mercer took notice of my work. Unlike most instructors who simply assigned work and graded it, Dr. Mercer engaged with students' code, challenging us to think bigger. After class one day, she called me to her desk. "Gloria, this scheduling algorithm you created for the assignment is far beyond what I asked for. Have you considered where you might transfer after you finish here?" I explained my financial situation, careful to keep any self-pity from my voice. Dr. Mercer listened thoughtfully. "I spent 20 years in the tech industry before teaching," she said. "I still have connections. There are scholarships, internships, and paths you haven't considered yet. With your talent, giving up shouldn't be an option." Dr. Mercer became the mentor I'd never had. She stayed after hours to teach me advanced concepts beyond our curriculum. She brought me textbooks from upper-level courses. Most importantly, she believed in me when I struggled to believe in myself. "The tech world needs more women," she told me. "Not because of quotas or politics, but because diverse perspectives create better solutions. The obstacles you've overcome will make you a better developer than someone who's had everything handed to them." Under her guidance, I began developing an app to organize my chaotic life-work schedules, bill deadlines, class assignments, and meal planning, when grocery money ran dangerously low. What started as a personal project evolved as I realized other struggling students might benefit from similar tools. "You should enter the TechStart competition," Dr. Mercer suggested one afternoon, showing me a flyer for a regional app development contest with a $5,000 prize and business mentorship. "Those are for real developers, with teams and resources," I argued. "Those are for innovators with good ideas," she countered. "Your financial management approach is unique because you've lived the problem you're solving. Most 20-year-old developers create games or social networks. You're creating survival tools." Against my better judgment, I submitted my application. The night before the competition, huddled over my secondhand laptop at the kitchen table while my roommate slept, I nearly withdrew. My app felt too personal, too revealing of my financial struggles. The interface was simple compared to the flashy designs I'd seen from other entrants. The competition was held at a startup incubator downtown. I felt painfully out of place among teams of confident developers with matching t-shirts and practice pitches. When my turn came, my hands shook as I connected my laptop to the projector. "My app is called SenseSense," I began, voice trembling. "It's for people who count every penny because they have to, not because they want to." Instead of focusing on technical features, I told my story without the family drama, but with honest details about trying to manage minimum wage jobs, education, and basic survival with limited resources. I demonstrated how the app created personalized financial strategies based on income volatility, helping users prioritize expenses when there simply wasn't enough money to go around. "This isn't just budgeting software," I concluded. "It's financial triage for people whose lives depend on making the right money decisions every single day." The judges asked tough questions about scalability and monetization that I hadn't fully considered. I answered honestly, acknowledging the gaps in my business knowledge, while defending the core value of the solution. After all presentations finished, I slipped out early, convinced I'd embarrassed myself. I was halfway to the bus stop when one of the judges caught up with me. "Gloria Williams. Where are you going?" "We're announcing winners in 10 minutes. I returned reluctantly, standing at the back of the room as they announced third place, then second. When they called my name for first place, I thought I'd misheard. Sense addresses a market that every other developer in this room overlooked, the lead judge explained. While others created solutions for convenience, Gloria created a solution for survival. The technical execution is promising, but the vision and authentic understanding of the user's needs put this entry over the top. I walked to the stage in a daze, accepting an oversized check and business card from a program called Tech Foundry that offered 6 months of mentorship to competition winners. That night, I sat on my mattress on the floor, staring at the check. $5,000 more money than I'd ever held at once. My roommates wanted to celebrate, suggesting dinners out and shopping trips. Instead, I deposited the check the next morning, paid my portion of next month's rent in advance, bought a slightly better laptop, and invested the rest in development tools and courses to improve Sense. The win wasn't just about money. It was validation that my experience had value, that my perspective mattered. For the first time since leaving home, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could build something that would change my life. What I didn't know was how many other lives it would change along with mine. The Tech Foundry mentorship program paired me with Jonathan, a 40-something developer who'd sold his cybersecurity company 2 years earlier. Our first meeting at a downtown coffee shop set the tone for our relationship. "So, what's your exit strategy?" he asked before even discussing my app. "Exit strategy? I'm just trying to build something useful," Jonathan smiled. "Useful is nice. Profitable is better. Let's talk about how to make sense both." For 6 months, I divided my time between classes, minimum wage jobs, and intense development sessions with Jonathan. He challenged everything about my approach, not because it was wrong, but because he wanted me to defend every decision. "If you can't explain why you built it this way to me, you'll never convince investors," he'd say whenever I got frustrated with his questions. While my professional life gained momentum, my personal life experienced its own transformation. I'd started dating Jason, a business student I met at a Tech Foundry networking event. After years of focusing solely on survival, having someone who took interest in me as a person felt intoxicatingly normal. "You're going to be the next big thing in fintech," Jason would say, bringing me coffee during late-night coding sessions. He called himself my biggest cheerleader, proudly telling people his girlfriend was a tech genius. As my confidence grew professionally, I noticed troubling patterns in our relationship. Jason loved introducing me as his genius girlfriend, but seemed uncomfortable when others recognized my work directly. He'd interrupt when I explained technical concepts, translating my explanations with minor inaccuracies that I'd have to correct. "I'm just making it accessible," he'd say when I pointed this out. "You tend to go over people's heads." Dr. Mercer noticed the dynamic during a demonstration where Jason kept jumping in. After he left, she asked, "Does he always need to be the smartest person in the room?" "He's just excited about the project," I defended, though her question lingered. By the end of my mentorship, Sense had evolved considerably. Jonathan helped me refine the core financial management features while adding tools specifically for gig workers, students, and anyone with irregular income. We developed a roadmap for scaling, including a potential business model that would keep the app free for users below certain income thresholds. "You're ready to talk to real investors," Jonathan said during our final session. "I've arranged a meeting with Madison Partners next week. They fund early-stage fintech startups." The meeting was a brutal awakening to the realities of the investment world. The conference room held 5 partners, 4 men and 1 woman, all with expressions that telegraphed skepticism before I'd said a word. "So you're the coding wunderkind Jonathan's been talking about," said the oldest partner, a gray-haired man who barely glanced at my presentation materials. "Interesting concept, but the market for budget apps is saturated. What makes yours different?" I launched into my prepared pitch, explaining Sense's unique approach to irregular income and financial crisis management. 2 minutes in, another partner interrupted. "Have you considered pivoting to the luxury market?" Wealthy people have more disposable income for subscription services. That would defeat the entire purpose, I replied. SenseSense is designed specifically for people who are financially vulnerable. Noble, but not profitable, he countered. How do you monetize users who can barely pay their bills? For 40 minutes, the conversation continued in this vein. I defended my market understanding, explained potential revenue from partnerships with ethical financial services, and pushed back against suggestions to change SenseSense into something unrecognizable from my original vision. Only one partner, Margaret Chen, asked questions that showed genuine interest in the problem I was solving, rather than immediate profit potential. She inquired about user testing retention metrics and technical architecture choices. As the meeting concluded, the consensus was clear in their body language: no investment today. I packed up my materials, fighting disappointment. I'll walk you out, Margaret offered, following me to the elevator. I blew it, didn't I? I asked once the doors closed. Actually, you did exactly right, she said. You defended your vision against pressure to compromise. That's rarer than you think. She handed me her card. Call my assistant tomorrow. I'd like to discuss a personal investment outside the firm's portfolio. When I told Jason about Margaret's interest that evening, his reaction surprised me. A personal investment? That's weird. Are you sure she doesn't have ulterior motives? Like what? She's a professional investor who believes in SenseSense? I'm just saying, these venture capital types always have angles. Did you show them the revised pitch deck I helped with? No, I used the original. Your version didn't emphasize the core value proposition correctly. Jason's face hardened. So you didn't use any of my contributions, after all the nights I stayed up helping you. You rewrote my personal story and removed all the technical specifics. It wasn't authentic anymore, because your story is depressing. Nobody wants to invest in some sob story about being broke. The argument escalated from there. Jason stormed out, and I turned to my computer to calm down by working on the code base. Opening my development environment, I immediately noticed something wrong. Key sections of code had been deleted or altered, breaking core functionality I'd spent weeks perfecting. I checked the version control history. The changes had been made yesterday afternoon from my laptop while I was in class, and Jason had asked to check his email on my computer. My blood ran cold as I scrolled through more changes. This wasn't an accident. Sections were strategically damaged in ways that wouldn't be immediately obvious, but would cause the app to fail during a demonstration. I worked through the night restoring the code from backups and adding new security measures. When Jason texted at 6 a.m., as if nothing had happened, "Morning, beautiful coffee later," I didn't respond. Instead, I called Margaret and moved our meeting up to that morning. I arrived at her office with the evidence of tampering and a heavy heart. "Before we discuss investment, there's something you should know," I said, showing her the code comparison. "Someone deliberately sabotaged my project yesterday." Margaret's eyes narrowed as she examined the screen. "Someone with access to your computer, I assume." "My boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend now." "I see." She studied my face. "And how are you handling this breach of trust?" I restored everything from backups, added password protection, to all development tools, and ended the relationship. I won't let anyone compromise something I've worked this hard to build. A smile spread across Margaret's face. "That's exactly what I needed to hear. Let's talk numbers." Margaret's initial investment of $75,000 came with something more valuable than money: mentorship from a woman who'd navigated the tech industry's gender biases for decades. "Your app has potential beyond what you've imagined," she said. "But you need to protect yourself, not just your code, but your ownership, your vision, and your boundaries." When Jason showed up at my apartment that evening, alternating between apologies and accusations, I stood my ground. "I know what you did to my code." His denial lasted about 30 seconds before shifting to justification. "You weren't listening to me. I just wanted you to need my help debugging so you'd see how valuable my input is." "That's not partnership, Jason. That's sabotage." "You've changed," he accused. "Ever since you got attention for this app, you think you're too good for my advice. Too good for me." In that moment, I recognized the same patterns I'd fled from at home: the need to diminish me to elevate himself, the belief that my success somehow threatened his worth. You're right that I've changed, I said calmly. I've finally learned the difference between someone who supports me and someone who needs me to stay small so they can feel big. Please leave your key on the table. As the door closed behind him, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. Once again standing my ground had cost me a relationship. But unlike when I left home this time, I wasn't walking into uncertainty. I was walking into a future I was building, with my own hands, code, and courage. 3 years passed in a blur of growth challenges and hard-won victories. SenseSense evolved from a simple personal finance app into a comprehensive financial platform for underserved communities. With Margaret's investment and guidance, I built a team of 15 passionate developers, designers, and financial advisors who shared my vision of making financial stability accessible to everyone. Our office occupied the 3rd floor of a renovated warehouse in Chicago's West Loop, a far cry from the days of coding on a mattress on the floor. My own apartment, while modest compared to what I could afford, represented stability I once thought impossible. 2 bedrooms, big windows, actual furniture, and not a roommate in sight. The journey hadn't been smooth. 6 months after launch, when SenseSense reached 50,000 users, a major financial app released a suspiciously similar budget assistant feature targeting low-income users. They're trying to crush us before we get bigger, warned Carlos, our lead developer. Rather than competing directly with a company valued at billions, we pivoted to emphasize community features. The giant couldn't easily replicate peer support groups, local resource sharing, and partnerships with community organizations. Serving our user base. Financial health isn't just about algorithms, I explained in a company meeting. It's about belonging to a community that understands your struggles. That pivot became our competitive advantage. While bigger companies could copy our tools, they couldn't replicate the authentic community we'd built. User testimonials poured in, not just about financial improvements, but about the emotional impact of finding others in similar situations. For the first time, I don't feel ashamed about my financial situation, wrote one user. SenseSense makes me feel understood instead of judged. Press coverage followed, with business magazines featuring our unconventional approach. I reluctantly became the face of the company, sharing carefully edited versions of my background to explain my passion for financial inclusion. The first acquisition offer came when we reached 1 million users, $2 million from a larger fintech company looking to absorb our technology and user base. It's a good offer for a company your size, said the representative, a polished executive who referred to our users as that demographic. I declined without consulting anyone, trusting my instinct that our mission remained unfulfilled. Margaret backed my decision, though other advisors thought I was crazy to turn down life-changing money. 2 million divided by 15 team members isn't life-changing, I argued. But what we're building could change millions of lives. While the company grew, I maintained a careful distance from my past. I'd changed my surname legally from Williams to Winters, partly for privacy, and partly to create separation from the family that had rejected me. As far as I knew, they remained unaware of my success or whereabouts. That changed on a Tuesday morning in October when my assistant interrupted a meeting. "There's a Tom Williams insisting on speaking with you. Says he's your brother." My hands trembled as I took the call in my office. Tom's voice, deeper than I remembered, but unmistakable, filled the line. "Gloria, it's really you. I wasn't sure when I saw the magazine." Financial Technology Monthly had featured me on their 30 under 30 list. The photo showed me in front of our Chicago office, captioned with my new name, but mentioning my Tennessee origins. "What do you want, Tom?" I asked, surprised by how steady my voice remained. "To apologize. To see you if you'll let me." "It's been 7 years, Gloria." 8, I corrected automatically. The silence stretched between us, filled with unasked questions. "I left home too," he finally said. "Not like you, not thrown out, but I couldn't stay after I understood what they did." We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop near my office. Tom had aged in ways that surprised me, his once athletic build, now softer hair thinning at the temples. He looked up when I entered, expression cycling through shock, relief, and something like pride. "You look successful," he said after an awkward hug. "You look tired," I replied, managing a small smile. "Over the next 2 hours, Tom filled in the 8-year gap. He'd worked for our father's construction company until 4 years ago, when a disagreement over modernizing their operations led to his departure. He now ran his own smaller firm in Nashville, was divorced with 2 children, and had been following my career secretly for the past year. Dad and Mom have been tracking your success too, he admitted. They have a folder of every article, every mention of Sense. Why? To remind themselves of the daughter they threw away. Tom stared into his coffee. It's complicated. Dad would never admit it, but I think he's proud in his way. Confused about how his mistake became so successful but proud. That's not pride. That's regret over a bad investment decision. Maybe. Tom hesitated. The business isn't doing well. Dad refused to adapt to new building technologies, lost contracts to more innovative competitors. Andrew's gambling didn't help. That's not my problem. I know. He met my eyes. I'm not here asking for money, Gloria. I'm here because I let them drive away my sister once. I don't want to make that mistake again. I didn't know if I believed him, but the conversation opened a door I thought permanently closed. Tom and I began cautiously rebuilding a relationship, monthly calls, occasional visits when his work brought him to Chicago. He kept my contact information private from the rest of the family at my insistence. Meanwhile, Sense continued its expansion. We developed specialized tools for different vulnerable populations, recently divorced women navigating sudden financial independence, immigrants, learning American banking systems, seniors on fixed incomes, and young people burdened with student loans. The second acquisition offer came from one of the largest banks in the country, $20 million, and promises to maintain our mission. This time I brought it to the full team for discussion. If we accept everyone here becomes financially secure for life, I acknowledged during the all-hands meeting. But we lose control over the product's future. Carlos raised his hand. My mother uses Sense to manage her Social Security. She trusts us. Would she trust Big Bank Financial with the same intimate financial details? Others shared similar concerns along with creative alternatives to selling. By meeting's end, we'd developed a different approach, seeking mission-aligned investment to scale while maintaining independence. The strategy worked. 6 months later, we closed a funding round of $15 million from impact investors who valued both our financial returns and social mission. The company valuation hit $50 million, with my ownership stake worth approximately $20 million on paper. The morning after announcing our funding success, I received a text from Tom. They're coming to Chicago. All of them. Dad, Mom, Steve, Andrew. They know about the investment. Be prepared. I had 24 hours to decide whether to face my past or run from it again. This time I chose to stand my ground. 4 years after Tom re-entered my life, Sense had transformed beyond my wildest dreams. What began as a survival tool for one desperate girl now served 4 million users across the country. Our latest feature, a community lending circle platform that helped users build credit while supporting each other, had been profiled in the Wall Street Journal as revolutionizing microfinance in America. The company valuation had reached $85 million after a strategic partnership with a national credit union association. My personal fortune, including company equity and careful investments, approached $30 million. I had become what my father thought impossible, a self-made woman whose worthless gender hadn't limited her success. Yet money hadn't changed my core habits. I lived in the same 2-bedroom apartment, drove a practical 3-year-old Subaru, and invested most of my liquid wealth into a foundation supporting young women in technology. The Gloria Winters Foundation provided scholarships, mentorship, and emergency funds to girls facing barriers similar to mine. My personal healing journey had progressed alongside my financial one. Weekly therapy sessions helped me process the abandonment trauma and rebuild my sense of worth beyond achievements. I'd developed genuine friendships beyond work relationships. Even cautiously dated a few men who demonstrated actual respect for my career. Tom remained the only family connection I maintained, though he occasionally updated me on the others. Dad's construction business struggled, as younger, more innovative competitors secured the contracts he once took for granted. Mom had started a small interior design business that brought in supplementary income. Steve worked for an engineering firm in Atlanta, the only brother who'd found stable success outside the family business. Andrew's gambling addiction had worsened, creating significant debt that strained family resources. He'd moved back to the family home at 35, ostensibly to help with the business, though Tom suspected he contributed little actual work. I had just finished presenting at a women's leadership conference when my phone buzzed with an email notification from meredith.williams83@gmail.com. Subject: Your family needs to speak with you. Gloria, it's been 15 years. Too long. We've followed your success from afar and recognize that you've made something impressive of yourself despite our differences. Family should come first, and we'd like to reconnect. Your father and I will be in Chicago next weekend and would appreciate the opportunity to meet. Please let us know a convenient time and place. Your mother, Meredith Williams. I stared at the screen, my body flooding with contradictory emotions. The abandoned child craving validation, the successful woman wanting to showcase her accomplishments, the wounded daughter dreading further rejection. That evening, I brought the email to my therapist, Dr. Samantha Rivera. "What do you want to happen if you meet them?" she asked after listening to my conflicted thoughts. "Part of me wants them to apologize, to admit they were wrong about me," I confessed. "Another part wants to show them everything I've built without them. And honestly, a small, shameful part wants them to need something from me so I can refuse. Those are all natural responses to profound rejection," Dr. Rivera assured me. "The question is which outcome would help your healing process rather than reopen wounds." After much reflection, I agreed to meet them. I chose an upscale restaurant where I'd be comfortable but they'd be slightly out of their element. A subtle power shift I'm not proud of, but felt necessary for my emotional safety. The reservation was for 6 on Sunday evening. I arrived 20 minutes early, securing a quiet corner table and ordering a glass of wine to steady my nerves. When the host led them to my table, the sight hit me physically. My parents noticeably aged beyond their years, followed by Steve and Andrew. Tom entered last, giving me a subtle nod of support. Dad looked smaller than I remembered, his once commanding presence diminished by time and what appeared to be financial strain. His shoulders hunched slightly under a sports jacket that had seen better days. Mom, thin and gray-haired, clutched her purse with white-knuckles eyes darting nervously around the upscale restaurant. Steve, always the most emotionally intelligent brother, approached first with an awkward half-hug. "You look great, Gloria." Andrew hung back, a flash of resentment crossing his face as he took in my designer blouse and confident posture. Mom stepped forward tentatively. "Gloria, you've grown up so much." "That happens in 15 years. I replied, immediately regretting the edge in my voice. We sat in painful silence until the waiter arrived to take orders. Dad cleared his throat after reciting his selection with exaggerated precision. "This is quite a place. Business must be good." "It is," I confirmed. "Sense serves 4 million users now." "We've followed your progress," Mom said. "All those magazine articles. We kept them." Tom mentioned that. The conversation lurched forward in fits and starts, everyone avoiding the elephant in the room, why they had disowned me, why 15 years had passed without contact, why they were here now. After appetizers arrived, Mom attempted personal connection. "You changed your last name." "Yes, 8 years ago." "That must have been difficult paperwork," she offered weakly. "Less difficult than being homeless at 18. Dad set down his fork with a clatter. "Now, Gloria, there's no need to be dramatic. You chose to leave." Tom interrupted. "Dad, that's not what happened, and you know it." I held up my hand. "It's fine, Tom. Yes, Dad, technically I walked out, after you told me I was worthless as a daughter and stole my savings." Andrew snorted. "Here we go with the victim story again. Is this what you tell all your tech friends? Poor little Gloria, so oppressed by her evil family. I don't talk about you at all, actually." Mom reached across the table. "Please, let's not fight. We're here to reconnect, to put the past behind us." "Why now?" I asked directly. After 15 years of silence, why reach out now? The glances exchanged around the table told me everything before anyone spoke. Dad straightened, adopting the authoritative tone he'd used throughout my childhood. We're family, Gloria. Despite everything, blood is blood. The Williams name stood for something in Tennessee for 3 generations. I'm not a Williams anymore. Nevertheless, he continued, family. Supports family through difficult times. The construction business has faced challenges. The economy, regulations, new competitors. We've had to leverage the family home to cover operational costs. And Andrew's gambling debts, I added, watching my brother's face flush. That's private family business, Dad snapped. Which I'm not part of, remember? You made that very clear. Mom jumped in, voice pleading. Gloria, honey, we've made mistakes. We didn't appreciate your potential. But look at you now, so successful, so accomplished. Maybe everything happened the way it needed to for you to become this amazing businesswoman. I stared at her, incredulous at the attempt to reframe their abandonment as somehow beneficial to my development. We need $3 million, Dad finally stated, dropping all pretense. To save the business, clear debts, get everything back on stable footing. As family, we're asking for your help. Despite having prepared myself for this possibility, the brazen request still stunned me. $3 million. Just like that. After 15 years of no contact. You have what, 30 million now? Andrew interjected. 3 million is nothing to you. A rounding error. It's 10% of my net worth. To people who threw me away. Dad's face darkened. We gave you 18 years of food, shelter, clothing, education. The legal minimum required of parents, I interrupted. While you gave my brother's vehicles, college educations, and business opportunities. We've admitted we were wrong about your potential, Mom said, tears forming. Isn't that enough? Can't you find it in your heart to help your family now that you've been so blessed? Blessed, I repeated. I wasn't blessed. I worked 70-hour weeks while homeless, put myself through school, built a company from nothing, all while dealing with the emotional damage of being told I was worthless by the people who should have loved me most. Dad leaned forward. If you want an apology, fine. I'm sorry we didn't see your business potential. I was wrong about what you could achieve. Is that what you needed to hear? Will that unlock your wallet? The naked transactional nature of his apology confirmed everything. They hadn't come to reconnect or make amends. They'd come because I was now a potential solution to their financial problems. I need time to think about this, I said, signaling for the check. Financial decisions this size require careful consideration. We need an answer soon, Dad pressed. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I'll let you know my decision within the week. As we stood to leave, Mom embraced me stiffly. We are proud of you, Gloria. Despite everything, seeing what you've built, any parent would be proud. Those words, which I'd longed to hear for decades now, rang hollow against the backdrop of their financial demands. They weren't proud of me. They were interested in my money. Outside the restaurant, Tom hung back as the others got into their rental car. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I warned you they were coming, but I didn't know it would be this, transparent. It's not your fault. At least now I know exactly where I stand. The family ATM, not the family daughter. As their taillights disappeared into Chicago traffic, I realized this meeting had given me something unexpected. Not the closure or reconciliation I'd secretly hoped for, but a final confirmation that I had built my success and worth entirely without them. Whether I decided to help financially or not, I no longer needed their approval to know my value. Back in my apartment that night, the emotional impact of the reunion hit me full force. I curled on the sofa sobbing with a raw intensity I hadn't experienced since those first homeless nights at 18. All the carefully constructed professional composure disintegrated under the weight of renewed rejection. They still didn't see me, just what I could do for them. 15 years, and nothing had fundamentally changed. Dawn found me exhausted but clear-headed. I called Diane, my original mentor, now a close friend and foundation board member. They asked for $3 million, I explained, after recounting the dinner. No real apology, no actual interest in me as a person, just a financial demand. What are you thinking of doing? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Part of me wants to tell them to go to hell. Another part worries I'll regret not helping if their situation is truly desperate. Those aren't your only options, Diane observed. You're a strategic problem solver in every other area of your life. Why approach this differently? Her question shifted my perspective. I spent the day consulting my most trusted advisors, Margaret, Dr. Rivera, and Carlos, whose judgment I valued above most others. Each offered different insights, but a common theme emerged: whatever decision I made needed to serve my healing, not just react to their demands. Meanwhile, the pressure from my family intensified. Mom sent daily emotional emails describing their dire circumstances. Dad called the office repeatedly until my assistant began screening his calls. Andrew, the most brazen, showed up, unannounced at Sense headquarters, telling reception he had an appointment with his sister. When security escorted him from the building, he created a scene in the lobby, shouting that I'd abandoned the family and was too good for the people who raised her. A video of his outburst appeared on local social media, forcing our PR team to issue a statement about a personal matter unrelated to company operations. To understand the full picture before making any decision, I hired a discreet financial investigator to review the Williams construction situation. The report confirmed Tom's assessment, but revealed additional concerns. The business had declined primarily due to mismanagement and resistance to innovation. Dad had rejected multiple opportunities to modernize operations or diversify services, insisting on doing things the Williams way, even as competitors embraced new technologies. Several lucrative contracts had been lost, specifically because they couldn't demonstrate digital project management capabilities that had become industry standard. Andrew's gambling had indeed created substantial debt, with evidence suggesting he had diverted company funds to cover personal losses. The family home carried a second mortgage, and 3 equipment loans were in arrears. Most troublingly, the investigator found a series of recent loan applications in my birth name, using my old Tennessee address attempts to leverage my credit history without my knowledge. Fortunately, identity verification steps had prevented approval, but the attempt itself revealed a disturbing willingness to commit fraud. I was digesting this information when Tom called with an urgent update. Dad's escalating things. He told a local reporter back home about his daughter, the tech millionaire, who's refusing to help save the family business. They're planning a human interest story about generational businesses dying while tech thrives. He's trying to publicly shame me into paying, essentially. And Mom's contacting your foundation donors, introducing herself as your mother, and hinting that your family story isn't what you've represented. The manipulation had shifted from private pressure to public attacks on my reputation. That night, I received the most direct threat, yet a text from Andrew. Dad has some great stories about your childhood tantrums and teenage rebellions. Wonder what your fancy investors would think about the real Gloria. Help your family, or we'll help ourselves to setting the record straight. I forwarded the message to my lawyer, then called an emergency session with Dr. Rivera. They're trying to force your hand through threats and manipulation, she observed. How does that affect what you want to do? I stared out her office window at the Chicago skyline. All my life they operated on the assumption that I was worthless unless I served their needs. Now they're trying to extract value from me the only way they know how, through coercion and control. And how do you want to respond to that? The question crystallized everything. I want to break the pattern. They expect me either to submit to their demands or reject them entirely, both reactions that keep us locked in the same dysfunctional dynamic. I need a third option. Over the next week, I developed that third option with help from my support network. Margaret connected me with business restructuring experts. Carlos helped analyze the technical deficiencies in the construction company's operations. My legal team prepared necessary documentation. When everything was ready, I called a family meeting at my office rather than a restaurant. This was business, not a social reconciliation. They arrived together again, faces showing mixed emotions. Dad's barely concealed anger, Mom's anxious hope, Steve's discomfort, Andrew's entitlement, and Tom's cautious neutrality. My assistant showed them to the conference room, where I waited not behind the imposing head of the table, but standing beside a digital presentation screen. I wore my standard work attire, a professional but not ostentatious outfit that projected competence rather than wealth. "Thank you for coming," I began, maintaining a calm, businesslike tone. "I've considered your request carefully and researched Williams Construction's situation thoroughly," Dad interrupted immediately. "So you've been investigating us?" "Typical. Just tell us if you're going to help your family or not." "I'm prepared to help, but not in the way you've requested." I clicked to the first slide displaying a comprehensive analysis of the company's financial position and competitive disadvantages. Williams Construction is failing, not primarily because of economic conditions, but because of strategic choices and operational deficiencies. Injecting $3 million without addressing these fundamental issues would only postpone inevitable failure. Andrew scoffed. "So you called us here to lecture us? Just say no if that's your answer." "My answer is more complex than yes or no. I'm offering a restructuring and modernization partnership with specific conditions." I outlined my proposal: creation of a new business entity, Williams Winters Construction Technologies. With modernized operations, investment of $1.5 million in new equipment and digital infrastructure, business coaching and technical training for all family members, financial management programs mandatory for anyone with signing authority, regular auditing, and professional oversight of all operations, addiction counseling as a condition of Andrew's continued employment, family therapy sessions to address long-standing, destructive patterns. This isn't a gift or a loan, I concluded. It's a business intervention with professional oversight and accountability measures. My investment buys restructuring support and minority ownership, not a quick cash infusion. The reaction was immediate and volatile. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "So you'll only help if you can control everything, take over the family business." "No, I'm offering to save a failing business while addressing the reasons it's failing, including the family dynamics that contribute to its problems." "This is humiliating," Andrew spat. "Family therapy, addiction counseling, who do you think you are?" "I'm someone who built a successful company by facing reality and seeking help when needed. Something our family has never been good at." Mom looked conflicted. "Gloria, we appreciate the offer, but couldn't you just provide the funding more? Simply, these conditions feel like punishment." "They're not punishment. They're protection for the business, for the family, and for my investment. I won't throw good money after bad, and I won't enable patterns that have hurt all of us." Steve, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. "She's right. Dad, we've talked about modernizing for years. The business is dying because we've refused to adapt." Dad's face reddened. "So you're taking her side now?" "This isn't about sides," I interjected. "It's about solutions. My offer addresses the actual problems, not just the symptoms. You can accept it with the conditions attached, or decline it entirely. Those are the options." A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Dad spoke with controlled fury. "You always were stubborn. Even as a little girl, you'd dig in your heels. I see that hasn't changed." "No, it hasn't," I agreed. "My persistence built a multi-million-dollar company despite starting with nothing. Imagine what it could do for Williams Construction if you'd accept the help you actually need, not just the check you want." The meeting ended without resolution. As they filed out, Tom hung back again. "For what it's worth, I think your proposal makes sense. The company needs exactly what you're offering, not just cash. Will they see it that way?" He sighed. "Eventually, maybe. When reality forces them to. Dad's pride is the biggest obstacle." "Pride has cost this family enough already," I said quietly. "Let me know when they're ready to talk solutions instead of handouts." As the door closed behind them, I felt something shift inside me, not the catharsis of rejection or the relief of capitulation, but the steady strength of holding my ground while extending a hand on my terms. For the first time, I'd engaged with my family, neither as the unwanted daughter nor the desperately needed financier, but as a woman who knew her worth and the true value of what she had to offer. 2 weeks passed without word from my family. I continued running Sense, advancing our mission, and occasionally checking with Tom about developments back home. The bank had issued a final foreclosure warning on the family property. Dad had approached other potential investors without success. Mom had taken extra interior design clients to cover basic expenses. They're running out of options, Tom reported during our weekly call. Pride is expensive, luxury they can't afford much longer. I wasn't gloating over their predicament despite everything. I took no pleasure in their struggles. I simply remained firm in my assessment. Throwing money at their problems without addressing root causes would solve nothing. On a crisp November morning, my assistant knocked on my office door. "Your father's on line 1. He says it's important." Dad's voice sounded different, subdued without the commanding tone he'd maintained, even while asking for help. "We need to talk about your proposal," he said, without preamble. "The bank's given us 30 days. After that, we lose everything." I agreed to another meeting, suggesting my office again. Dad countered with a neutral location, a meeting room at their hotel. I conceded this small point, recognizing the importance of dignity in these negotiations. When I arrived, I found not just my immediate family, but also 3 senior employees of Williams Construction, who had been with the company since my grandfather's time. Their presence surprised me, suggesting this might be more than another demand session. Dad stood as I entered our eyes, meeting with a new dynamic. Neither his former dominance nor my recent defensive stance, but something more measured. "Gloria, thank you for coming. We've reviewed your proposal with our team and our bank. We'd like to discuss some modifications, but the framework you suggested has merit." The admission clearly cost him effort, decades of patriarchal authority, challenged by circumstances he couldn't control. I nodded, taking a seat at the table. "I'm open to reasonable modifications. What did you have in mind?" For the next 2 hours, we engaged in actual negotiation. Dad and his team outlined concerns about governance structure, ownership percentages, and implementation timelines. I clarified my requirements around financial oversight and mandatory programs. Points were conceded on both sides. The most significant breakthrough came when Dad acknowledged the company's technological deficiencies. "We've lost bids to firms half our size because their digital presentations make our paper blueprints look prehistoric," he admitted. I didn't want to see it, but the world changed while we were standing still. Mom, who had been mostly quiet, spoke up about family therapy. "Is that really necessary for the business restructuring? It seems very personal." "The business problems and family problems are interconnected," I explained. "The same patterns that led to rejecting me for being female have contributed to rejecting new ideas and perspectives in the business. We need to address both to create lasting change." To my surprise, Steve supported this point. "Mom, we've needed family counseling since Gloria left. We just never wanted to admit it." Andrew remained hostile throughout, occasionally making sarcastic comments, until Dad finally silenced him with uncharacteristic sharpness. "You're in no position to object to anything given your contribution to this situation." By meeting's end, we had the framework of an agreement. My investment would be structured as $1 million in direct capital and $500,000 in technology implementation and training services. The family would maintain majority ownership, but with a professional board, including outside directors. All family members would participate in appropriate counseling programs as a condition of continued involvement. As everyone gathered their materials, Dad approached me directly. "You could have refused. You could have let it all crash down. Why didn't you?" The question seemed genuine, not manipulative. I considered my answer carefully. "Because destruction is easy. Building something better is harder, but worth it." His eyes, so like mine in shape, if not in expression, studied my face. "You didn't learn that from me." "No," I agreed. "I learned it despite you. But maybe it's not too late for all of us to learn better ways forward." The transformation didn't happen overnight. Legal documents took weeks to finalize. The restructuring process revealed additional problems requiring attention. Family therapy sessions began awkwardly, with more silence than sharing. But small changes accumulated. The construction company launched a digital project management system that secured 2 major contracts within months. Steve took leadership of operational modernization, finding unexpected fulfillment in bridging traditional craftsmanship with new technologies. Mom discovered her interior design expertise, complemented the construction business, creating an additional revenue stream. Dad struggled most with the power shift, but gradually recognized that adaptation wasn't surrender. During our third family therapy session, he finally addressed the central wound directly. "I was wrong about you," he said, the words clearly difficult. "Not just about your business potential, but about your worth as a person, as my daughter." Why was it so important that I be a boy? I asked, the question I'd carried since childhood. He stared at his hands. "My father told me a Williams man is measured by his sons." I believed him without questioning, just like I believed everything else he taught me. It never occurred to me to ask why. The simple answer contained profound implications, the unexamined inheritance of beliefs that had shaped generations of our family. Andrew's journey proved most challenging. Initial resistance to addiction counseling gave way to grudging attendance, then gradually to meaningful engagement as he confronted the patterns destroying his life. Rebuilding trust would take years, but the process had begun. 2 years after that pivotal meeting, Williams Winters Construction Technologies celebrated its official relaunch with an open house at newly renovated headquarters. The event symbolized more than business restructuring. It represented a family reconstructed on healthier foundations. I maintained appropriate boundaries, participating as a business partner and family member without sacrificing the independent life and company I'd built. Sense continued to thrive recently, expanding internationally with a microfinance initiative supporting women entrepreneurs worldwide. The Gloria Winters Foundation established a special program called Building Bridges, providing technical education and business opportunities for young women interested in traditionally male-dominated trades. Dad, in perhaps the most surprising development, became one of the program's most committed mentors, helping girls understand construction principles and occasionally sharing cautionary tales about old thinking. After the relaunch celebration, as guests mingled in the modernized office space, I found a quiet moment with Tom on the building's rooftop deck. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" he asked, gesturing toward our family below. "When you left that night, I thought we'd never see you again." "I couldn't have imagined this," I admitted. "I spent years building walls to protect myself from them. Learning to build bridges instead has been challenging, but worth it." I considered the genuine, if imperfect, healing that had occurred. Yes, worth it. Not because blood is thicker than water, or because family obligation demanded it. Worth it because we all chose to do the harder work of transformation instead of clinging to destructive patterns. Mom appeared at the rooftop entrance, hesitating before approaching. "The photographer wants a family picture if you're willing." The request held layers of meaning, acknowledgement of my place in the family, after years of exclusion, recognition that my participation was now invited rather than assumed. As we gathered for the photo, I reflected on the journey from that desperate 18-year-old with $87 to the woman standing here now, not just financially successful, but emotionally sovereign, capable of extending help without surrendering boundaries. Dad positioned himself beside me, awkward but intentional. "Gloria, I've been meaning to tell you, that financial app of yours, we've implemented it for all our employees as a benefit. It's making a real difference for the crews." The simple acknowledgement of my work's value, something I'd once desperately craved from him, now registered as just one milestone in a longer healing journey. "I'm glad it's helping," I replied. "That's what it was designed to do." As the camera captured the moment, I realized the most profound lesson of my story wasn't about success proving my family wrong. It was about learning that true worth never required their validation in the first place, yet still being open to reconciliation when it came with genuine change. My parents had disowned me for being a woman. My fortune had brought them back, seeking financial rescue. But my true power came not from wealth or retribution, but from the courage to offer transformation instead of transaction, to break generational patterns of conditional worth and create a new foundation for myself, and eventually for them. 2. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who hurt you? Comment below and share your experience. What would you have done in my situation? Like this video if you believe in the power of standing your ground while still offering a path forward. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength through life's toughest challenges. And share this with someone who might need to be reminded of their worth today. Thank you for listening to my journey. May you always know your value isn't determined by others, but by the courage and compassion you bring to your own unique path.